up to number 3 on my fantasy playlist, down from number 1. Lionel Richie, You Are. Fantasy playlist, March 18th, 1983. I thought I'd never get excited about Lionel Richie. Wasn't a real big Commodores fan and a Lionel Richie fan back in the day. But, well, there was Dancing on the Ceiling, that upbeat record by Lionel Richie in the fall of '86. Remember that one? When they had this party, all these people, and they had this great effect where Lionel Richie was walking on the ceiling. That was really, I mean, that's nothing but today's standards. I know that, but back then that was just something. And there was Penny Lover, and he wrote that with his wife, Penny Lover. The video. Remember watching the video to that song. It was in heavy rotation on Night Tracks, WTBS, back in the spring, around the spring, summer of 1984, and featured a blind girl. It's a very powerful video. Lionel Richie, God, I tell you, Lionel Richie was made out of gold. Solid gold. For 10 years, well, actually for about 11 years, Just to Be Close to You was from one of the Commodore's early singles. He was lead singer of the Commodores, and that was 1976. For about 10, 11 years, Lionel Richie as lead singer of the Commodores, as solo artist, he was on fire. I mean, he was a comet, a long-term comet, just circling around the solar system and coming back, and of course fizzled out. They all fizzle out sooner or later. It happens. It's just pop music. But let's go back to this record, You Are by Lionel Richie. Actually, Lionel Richie started with the Commodores in 1968. As a saxophone player, a singer, they signed with Atlantic Records in 1968, but later signed with Motown as a support act for the Jackson 5. And then they did their thing. Oh God, I love their first hit record. You won't. I don't know if anybody remembers Machine Gun. Remember Machine Gun? It was a funky instrumental, a rapid fire instrumental by the Commodores back in the summer of 1974. Went to number 22. It was just out of this world. It featured, what was that guy's name? I didn't get his name down. I should have got his name down. One of the group members, the keyboard player of the Commodores, played the clavinet, which was sort of an electric piano with a keyboard amplifier. And these clavinets, some of these clavinets came with 60 keys. And it just made the sound of that record, Machine Gun. Of course, I'm sure you probably remember their ballads a lot better. Three Times a Lady, and I'm Easy Like Sunday Morning. Of course, I'm sure everybody remembers Brick House, and Sail On, Still. And Lionel Richie went solo in 1981, released his first solo album in 1982. There was Truly, and of course You Are, coming in at number 3 on my fantasy playlist. One of the backup singers, I just found out. Oh, by the way, guess who plays synthesizer on this album? Thomas Dolby plays on this album. Talked about his song earlier on this fantasy playlist, She Blinded Me with Signs, and played the synthesizer on Foreigners, Waiting for a Girl Like You. Boy, I tell you, what comes around goes around. Richard Marx was one of the backup singers on this album by Lionel Richie. Richard Marx, who would later sell over 30 million records of his own. Satisfied, remember Satisfied in '89, and Endless Summer Nights in '88, and what was that song? Don't Mean Nothing Until You Sign It on the Dotted Line in the summer of '87 with Richard Marx. He was on this album, singing backup. Lionel Richie. Here we go. Lionel Richie, You Are at number 3 on my fantasy playlist, March 18th, 1983.